of the three beverages. The intoxicating part is always the same substance, ethyl alcohol.
You need a drink to have fun.
I do now.
Do you ever take a drink in the morning to relieve a hangover?
The more alcohol that reaches the liver at one time, the more alcohol goes on to the heart, unchanged. As long as
I'm here at Pariah Brewery and Tap Room on El Cajon Boulevard in San Diego, and we're going to have a nice little discussion about some of their unique beers. And before we get started, I'll have the two guys from Pariah here introduce themselves.
All right, thank you so much. My name is Dante. I am the sales representative for Pariah Brewing Company. Been doing this for a little bit over a year and a half now.
I'm Steve. I'm co-owner slash distribution manager. Do all the delivering out of the back of my beautiful pickup truck. And yeah.
A great view of it right here with all those scratches on the back from kegs.
Yeah, it's been through hell. But, it's still running though, so that's good.
Okay.
Well, good deal. Why don't we start off by you guys telling me a little bit about the brewery and when you started and kind of where you are right now, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, sure thing. So Pariah was incepted in 2016, but it actually opened its doors in February of 2017. So we're actually looking at our 3-year anniversary just coming up right around the corner here. As far as our mission statement goes, we really want to make all of our beers as flavorful as possible. And I mean, if you think about what Pariah, the literal word means, it means outcast or weirdo, weird individual. And if you meet everyone at Pariah, it becomes glaringly obvious. Perfect brand for us. I'm just kidding, but it's sort of a reflection of the type of beers that we make. Our motto is no practice is sacred, which basically means we want to mess around with true to style practices and kind of do whatever we want. I mean, in the American craft brewers scene, you can kind of do whatever you want. There's no rules in place as far as what you can put in your beer. So trying to mess around with that as much as possible and make something truly unique and experimental.
Yeah, and opening almost 3 years ago, trying to separate ourselves a little bit. Obviously,
Right.
I don't know how many breweries were 3 years ago.
Yeah.
But it was at least, 130, it's 150-ish now, I believe. I couldn't tell you. I lost count a time ago.
For the amount that are disappearing, an equal or greater amount are emerging. And so the saturation is something that, we've had to take as we go.
Right. It's interesting when you look at San Diego compared to other places. It seems like there's a lot of breweries making the same kind of beer, right? There's a lot of hazy IPAs, there's that sort of thing. So it seems like from a business standpoint, your plan to kind of set yourself apart is both a risk and an opportunity.
So it is definitely a balancing act. It's
right.
For what proportion do you make that you can have fun and have a portfolio that you're truly passionate about, while also balancing the needs of the consumer? Because, you talk about how everyone's making roughly the same thing, and that's just because they're just smart and they're meeting the demands of what the market is requiring. And we've basically done that as well.
Yeah, it's definitely, we know the beers that keep the doors open, but then, my business partner, who's the brewer, Brian, tries to definitely sprinkle in some of the odder stuff, an Uni Stout or Erotic City, some of the beers that, no one else is doing. And, those aren't going to be, like I said, the beers that keep the doors open, but they're very important for us.
Right.
Yeah, we want our brand to remain what we wanted it to be from the get-go still. We are an IPA brewery because I feel like if you're not an IPA brewery in San Diego, you got to be doing something real special. And so we realized we've gotten really good at making our hazy IPA, and that's what we would definitely brand ourselves as.
Right. And is most of your distribution in San Diego right now, or?
Yeah, the lion's share, the heavy majority is definitely still in San Diego. We're working on these contracts with out of state.
Yes, we've done one shipment to Maryland, and now we're trying to continue that in Maryland and Delaware. And we also did an order up by Seattle a while ago. that kind of like fell through, but we're now talking with San Francisco and trying to build our way north a little bit. You know, we're hopefully, we used to do Orange
Right.
and Anaheim area once a month. So now we're trying to, that kind of died out on us, fizzled out a bit. So now we're going to just plug away and try to get that back, you know, Anaheim or LA
Right.
area.
Right. It seems like San Diego's got a pretty good thirst for beer, though, as a city. I mean, to support all, 150 some odd breweries plus the big commercial guys, your big industry beers. Do you want to kind of talk a little bit about how you approach coming into this competitive market? I mean, how did you guys end up starting this? Was it your idea or you and the brewers' idea?
So it was Brian, my business partner. He kind of came up with the trademark in, I believe, 2010. And he'd always wanted to open his own brewery.
Right.
You know, he started off at Helms Brewing, or no, actually before that it was I think La Jolla Brewing, then Helms, and then I think he worked at Ballast for a little bit, and then went on to Stone. So just building his way up, and then but always having that dream. And we were both Maryland boys, and I met him through a mutual friend about 6+ years ago when I came out here. While he was at Helms, I loved his beer. The few beers that they let him do, I thought were great. And I was living back in Baltimore at the time, and I've been in distribution before that for like almost 20 years in the beer game, straight out of high school. So it was kind of my dream as well. And I knew a brewer out there, and we started talking. And we started talking about doing a brewery in Baltimore because at the time there was 3 maybe
Right.
in Baltimore City. So then, anyway, so Brian had a business partner back then. He kind of got cold feet, backed out on him. They contacted me, and I said, yeah, screw it. I'll move out here. Let's do it. You know, he had a great business plan already in line, already in works, obviously, with another guy. So it was pretty simple, and we found this Igniter building. And
Yeah, so I wasn't here quite from the inception of when we opened our doors and whatnot. But as soon as I came on board, I remember thinking, just during my interview process, a couple things that came to my mind were, okay, these guys have a sense of urgency, and they're all like kind of totally badass. I remember like going home from my interview saying, do I need to get a tattoo? Like, to fit in here?
Just go right next door. Right?
Yeah, just pop across the street. And like the second round interview, I have a tattoo.
Yeah.
No. The other thing that I noticed, though, when I started working here was there's not a lot of us, and everyone has a huge weight on their shoulders. And if one person falls short of their responsibilities, everyone suffers greatly, immensely, to the point where it threatens us as a company.
Right, and that's kind of is a small company. I'm sure long hours, right? I mean, this for a lot of guys, this would be the dream job, owning your own brewery, and but the reality of it's probably a ton of long hours.
The reality is definitely something that people don't think about past like the grandiose, idea in your mind that you have, like, oh, brewery, beer, fun, But when you really get down to brass tacks, it's how do you see 3 weeks out into the future, and the problems like with playing our production by ear, and that's probably the biggest thing, is not being able to see very far into the future to like gauge our expectations. And then those things alongside huge amounts of rent, space issues. I mean, there's just so many things that, because before I got this job, I was a bar manager. It really took working for a company where a huge part of it to realize the different struggles that they go through. I didn't fully understand that from the outside looking in, but once you're a part of it, you start to see everything.
Yeah, the San Diego market, these days, and I think in a lot of markets, and it's not about permanent handles anymore.
Right.
No.
Obviously you go to a lot more, you'll see the Stone Delicious, or some of the big ones, obviously. But for us little guys, it's like, we don't have permanent. We're fighting. And you get at one IPA, and what's new? I want a different IPA. I want this. I want this. So it's extremely tough for Brian to forecast. Keep the inventory in and make sure it's fresh as possible.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
I would call us highly adaptive.
Well, that's probably a good trait to have in
Yep.
this environment.
It's been figuring out, okay, this isn't working, so let's kegs are slowing down, so like ramp up can production. it's just like this balancing act of like all the different things that we need to keep track of.
Right. And as far as the tap room, how does that work for you guys?
I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
We're in this location. We're already in North Park, where there's so many options to choose from. We are still pretty young, and we have brand recognition, and we're working to develop that. But the reality of the situation is that everyone in North Park only has like as big of a piece of the pie as they get, with so many options floating around. But we do. Our tasting room manager, Kat, she absolutely kills it. She sets up events. She sets up art nights. And she makes like themed drinks and stuff that work well with whatever's going on around that time, whatever holiday it is.
Oh, nice.
So she really is passionate about her work.
You notice a lot of, it's not as much as about the casual drinkers anymore, the regulars. It's events. That's what brings people out. So she does a great job of, coming up with events, music nights, art nights, yada, yada. And
Right.
It's, important to have a few of those a month to, and there's always a good draw, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, people don't want to. I want to say that people aren't going to a bottle shop and coming back with a beer that they've had more than once or twice. I mean, what's valuable for me is that I'm a pretty standard consumer, in that I can kind of just look at myself and figure out what other people are probably doing. And if I'm going to bottle craft and I consider myself a craft beer aficionado or whatever, I don't typically go by and pick up the same 4-pack multiple over 2 times, unless I like really love it. People just want what's new, and we've tried our best to accommodate this sort of, I guess, fickle consumerism.
This is new.
Yeah.
This is new.
What's new?
Yeah, like when I got into craft beer, I was always drinking 60-minute Dogfish, 60
Yep.
minute, cases. I
Yeah.
gotta go get a case of it, and those days are pretty good. I mean, I still have my regulars,
Right.
of my main core beers that I'll always pick up a 4-pack. But yeah, it's always like, okay, I'll get a 4-pack of that. I'll try this. I'll try this. I'll try
Right.
this.
Yeah.
So
Also depends on your budget for the week. If you don't have what is now about $30 to spend on 4 16-ounce cans,
Yeah.
then maybe go back to what's your go-to for maybe $12.99 or $13.99.
Well, even as a consumer, you go into a grocery store, liquor store now, there's hundreds of beers to choose from, not just, as a kid, I remember maybe 20. Right? And nothing but 6-packs or cases, maybe a 12-pack, whatever. But now you got singles, and you got big,
And then you had 22-ounce bombers back in the day, and starting to see those get phased out in the more crafty regions of San Diego.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about your current lineup. What do we've got 3 4-packs on the table in front of us. Why don't you kind of walk us through what they are, and then we can talk about whatever you poured here for us.
All right, Steve, which beers do you want to describe? I think that I want to describe the pine and the mystery flavor. And I'll let you tackle the Dorcha, okay?
okay.
Yeah. So pine it's a hazy IPA, so that's what we've gotten really good at producing. It's got Simcoe and Chinook hops, and it's an ode to the Yakima Valley, which is one of the greatest hop growing regions in the world. The whole idea behind this can design, I loved it when Brian showed me the mock-up for it. It's inspired by Old Spice, and so it's got the clean red and white, and then just the clean tree to signify the hop growing region. The 7% line ABV'd with our core IPA. It's not listed here or shown here, but Dank Drank, because I think 7% is a nice wheelhouse for people to be drinking hazy IPA. But yeah, it's really clean beer. All of our IPAs have really restrained bitterness, and the mouth feels really, really creamy. I think that what we've realized also about people drinking IPAs in San Diego is they don't really want the hoppy palate wreckers that they've had back in the day. Maybe just 5 or so years ago. Because hazy IPAs, I think, emerged around 3 years ago, and it was a trend that did not go away. It's still holding strong, maybe with slight fluctuations up or down. But yeah, this is sort of what we've gotten really good at making, is this hazy IPA.
The Dorcha 4 and Extra Stout. This is one of the original beers when we first opened. Yeah, we definitely had it on 3 years ago when we first opened. It's a beautiful beer. Both of us being from Maryland, stouts are, the wintertime is
Right.
huge.
Right.
Fortunately, we've noticed not out here as much, which is a shame because this is maybe one of my favorite beers that Brian does. For an extra stout, we both love Guinness, so we wanted that, but we wanted to pump it up. We wanted, a lot of cocoa nips and a lot of coffee, and 7.2%. And yeah, it's a great beer, especially now, it's stout season, and
Yeah.
hopefully it'll be around for a bit.
When we produced that beer for our outside sales for cans, we restrained the amount that we made because even though it's winter, we were still super scared of the San Diego market's response to stout, just because we've gotten burned too many times, and
Right.
so this go around we didn't have as many, but we've seen actually a pretty significant movement in it to the point where we probably could have done a full batch and gotten away with it. I mean, that might
Yeah,
be a little
maybe.
bit audacious.
Yeah, I'm
Who
thinking
knows?
at least a little more, but
A little
I
more,
don't know.
yeah.
Full batch? Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Regardless,
Right.
yeah, that beer is really good. I've come around. So I'm not a really big stout drinker either, but it's actually got like sort of a crushable quality to it. It's just thin enough. Like the viscosity, I think, is just like balanced enough where you can. It's a little bit too easy to drink for 7.2%. But anyways, let's talk a little bit about the mystery flavor there. So as you can see on the design, I mean, if you can't already sort of pick it up, it's from the Dum Dum Lollipop. That's what the
Right.
inspiration there is. And so that's our raspberry, strawberry purees, and then whole dried lemon. For our sour beers, we've always wanted to make sure that we include some whole ingredients, just so people know that we're not like messing around. And then the purees are obviously high quality as well. But a while ago, this was actually after I started working here, enough people came in and they were like, do you have any sours? And I guess enough people did that where we were like, okay, I guess we should start making some sours.
That was never a plan. One style we just didn't plan on doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But if you do gauge a lot of the breweries now, the more well-founded ones, there are actually those sessionable sours that have worked their way into the yearly lineup, something that they produce year-round. And I'll tell you right now, most of the people who I know in San Diego love sour beers. It's a lot of the crowd that doesn't like beer, quote unquote, but will drink sour beers, you know?
Right.
But it's something that we noticed about the market, so we started making them seasonally. So this is one of those beers, and it's really, really great. It's got a nice pinkish hue, and it's really appealing aesthetically in the glass for people looking for a sour. It's a pretty beer.
Yeah, I think I saw you have this one on your webpage right now, don't you? I think.
Yeah,
It's a
it's definitely on
really,
there.
really good looking beer in the glass.
Yeah, it's a pretty beer. You see a pink, like, liquid in a beer glass, you're like, what's going on there?
Yeah. Yeah. And then how about this? What we have a pour in front of us.
Yeah, so it's nothing that we have here.
Okay.
But this is, I think, the quintessential Pariah beer. It's the first beer that really caught traction for us and started to give us a little bit of confidence about the recipe that we created and the branding that we chose. If you're gonna be selling cans, me as a sales rep going into a place as a tap room, you bring samples and people want to try a lot of the beer they put on tap. But a lot of the time when you go into an off-premise location, a liquor store or a bottle shop, they just want to know what the can looks like, or they want to know the ABV. They want to know price point. Yeah. It's a big one.
Yeah.
And style of beer as well. But like a big thing for them is what the can looks like. And
It's interesting.
yeah,
And
unfortunately,
we really wanted to we had an original design before we opened that we paid a designer to do for us, and we realized it just wasn't going to work. With being brand new, no one knowing who we are, like we had to get. Once we started revving up the cans, we had to get designs that like really would pop. You're like, okay, who the hell are these guys?
Right.
I want to try this.
do we have just a Smilex can back there, you think?
Yeah, probably one in the office.
There's got to be one, right? Yeah, because I realize that we're talking about it and we're gesturing, but we don't actually
Yeah.
have it in front of us. But
So do you do these in-house, or do you actually have to go out to get the designs for because I mean they're very striking cans. Like you said, the one looks Old Spice. It looks they definitely would all pull you in, catch your
Exactly.
eye. Yeah.
I mean, if you're not doing that, and we learned this with our Dank Drank can, It was a really standard can, but it is our flagship IPA. So, I mean,
Right.
it didn't need to be something special, but I mean, at the end of the day, you're looking at what is maybe 4 or 5 windows wide of 16-ounce cans, and what are you going to look at right away? You're not thinking too hard. Unless you go in with looking for something specific, whatever is more colorful, whatever is coolest is going to catch your eye.
Do not have a can. But we are canning it Friday. There'll be a Friday.
Oh, yeah, we are canning it on Friday. You guys want to just wrap this up? We'll just reschedule for next week.
All right.
But just to go off of a little bit of what the beer actually is, we've been talking about the branding. So this is a double dry hopped with Nelson hops. We realize that's a really hot hop for people. It's a 7.5% beer, so it's definitely a heavy beer, but it's not quite a double IPA. And if you drink it, you get a little bit confused as to how it could be 7.5% because it's really not something that hits you in the face. It's really flavorful.
No, yeah, very easy to drink. That one would definitely catch up with you quick if you.
Yeah. It sure has. Maybe a couple days.
Many nights. Many nights.
No, that's great. So you said this one was actually your trademark.
Yeah, it was the
Okay.
first beer, like I said, that really, really caught on. Used to be a rye IPA back in the day, but we just sort of altered the recipe just a little bit because, I mean, rye IPAs weren't really that big of a seller. So we just changed it around, changed the malt bill to match what is the sort of foundation for a lot of the hazy IPAs that we make, which is, I think, mostly oats at this point. Wish, like, Brian was here to confirm that, but I believe our hazy IPAs malt bill over 50% oats.
Okay.
Or 40% oats. It's the highest proportion of oats out of all the grains that are going in it. But yeah, it's a double dry hop with Nelson, and the name Smilex, it comes from the original Batman movie. And it was the serum that the Joker used to make people laugh hysterically. Yeah.
And kill them.
And killed them as well. Killed them with laughter.
No, it's very good. Very good beer. So yeah, let's. Also, you guys won a couple awards early on. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we won 2 Best New Brewery awards in 2017, just right out of the gates. People realized us as a force to be reckoned with. And I believe if you still look on Beer Advocate, I think that we're still, like among like the top rated breweries
Yeah, we were
in
number
San Diego.
1 rated. I actually haven't checked in months, so I can't say we still are. But,
We try to not look at ourselves.
I don't like looking at that stuff.
Yeah, we
Right.
try not to look at ourselves through these, consumer-driven applications and whatnot because it pains us to do so. But we realize that enough people are where if we can get a good rating on those things, we can convey it to people, and people will actually judge us for it. So
It's like I try not to go on Untapped very often.
Yeah.
It'll just get me a little angry.
Yeah.
With certain reviews, but
Yeah, it's kind of unnerving if you're going around and trying to sell a beer, and then somebody will just kind of use that as a guideline. I'm not saying it's not valid, but it is at the end of the day basically just a Yelp of beers.
Right.
yeah.
Different taste for different
Yeah,
people,
different-
right?
I was gonna say
Yeah,
different
Yeah.
strokes.
to
Yeah.
each their own.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's next for you guys? If you're looking down a year from now, where would you like to be? What would you like to be producing?
Well, so you know how I talked about that balancing act of production, whether it's going to be draft or cans. So we try to do 2 can releases every single month, and we've been talking to these out-of-state distributors just to try to ramp up the amount that we can produce and the amount that we can sell per month. But we're definitely, our whole idea for our canning has been 2 can releases the 3rd week of every month.
Right.
A lot of things have gotten in the way the last 6 months of us trying to do that. Whether it be, I don't know, maybe a miscommunication on delivery or a faulty piece of brewing equipment or I don't
Small
know.
business problems,
Yeah, just
right?
like-
Always something that
And it's
goes
always
wrong.
something different somehow.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know what the next.
Yeah, I don't know what the next
is,
one's gonna be, but we'll figure it out.
A meteor just falls.
Yeah.
Who knows?
It's about time.
But no, but we're getting pretty close to maximizing what we can do in this building. So obviously, like I told you before, the goal is to max out and get out.
Right.
So whether to get our own facility, that's hopefully in the near future for us.
Right.
Mhm.
You like to stay in the San Diego area, or you?
We're not sure where we're gonna go. we've talked about, whether I don't think it's possible to stay in the North Park area.
Yeah.
Due to, it's
Yeah.
a bigger facility and price-wise, but, whether it's east or south. Or,
Right.
The proportion of foot traffic and then thus our the money that we make here is totally disproportional to like how much we have to pay for the facilities. So
Right.
if we can somehow like get the money that we make up and the money we have to pay less, that would be great.
Right.
That's
Right.
all.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the goal.
It's kind of that was the goal.
But no, we're still figuring that part out.
Right, right. Yeah.
We have to get a loan first, and then that's the big one right there. But yeah, we'll see. It's exciting though. We're all excited, because we know we're getting to that point.
It's kind of critical
of
point.
our-
Yeah.
to where it is time
Yep.
to rev it up. Get something
We
bigger.
put so much effort, each one of us, and I think that we're all invested at this point. It's like, okay, we've made it this far, and I think that all of us would rather just throw in the towel or just move away and like do nothing before we see ourselves not succeed. Like we need that to happen just from the amount of work that we've all put in.
Right, right. You mentioned earlier too, for every one that fails, a new one comes in. Do you know kind of what the fail rate is for new breweries? If you had a guess, I mean,
I don't have a good idea of how many are going out a year.
Yeah, I don't know. It's
Yeah.
so busy with us. It's kind of hard to.
To keep track of that.
yeah,
I see stuff on like SDB or Plexus, but
Mhm.
I could not tell you.
Yeah.
What's unnerving is to see some breweries that have been established and around for sometimes like upwards of 7 or 8 years go under.
yeah,
And yeah, that's that's like frightening because it means that maybe we're doing exactly what we're doing and trying really, really hard to turn a big profit, and then just at a certain point realize that it was unfeasible, or I don't really know what went into with those certain, I guess, failures.
yeah. It's interesting. I've spoken to people in other sectors, the distillers, and so that's back east, Ohio, and those areas now. That's kind of become a hot thing, and a lot of people are going into these things almost as like a venture kind of capital thing, hoping they're going to get big enough that one of the big industry people buys them out. And then there's kind of this other group that do it because they love it, right? And they want to do it, and this is a craft. And
I got in this with Brian to try to make a living.
Right.
I didn't think about getting rich or
Right.
we're
Right.
going to be this brewery,
Yeah.
but just to where I could comfortably do this till I die.
Mm-hmm.
Just stay. Like,
Yeah.
this is what I want to do.
right.
I don't think any of us need a whole lot to on our day-to-day lives. My living
Right.
standard is very low.
Yeah.
It's not super low, but it's you don't get into the craft beer industry to like strike it rich, really.
Right.
I mean, you can have those hopes. I think that we all in the back of our minds maybe have those hopes, but
Oh, that'd be great.
yeah,
Yeah.
wouldn't complain.
Yeah, I've done some consulting for InBev over the years, and it's interesting. I think their kind of take on it seems to be we'll buy these breweries and then just kind of stick them over here, so we have a piece of that market. But it's certainly not their passion or their main. And in some ways, no one ever said this there, but I don't know that they cared if they made a profit from that as much as owning a piece of that sector.
Exactly. They just want to take.
Yeah.
Guys, take it away. You know?
Yeah.
Rule it out, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that I would agree with that. You see successful craft breweries getting swallowed up all the time. And it's just it's a matter of being threatened, right?
Right. What would you guys say is the relationship among the different breweries in town with this many? Is it like cutthroat, competitive, or is it more collaborative, kind of, or a little bit of somewhere in the middle?
There's definitely no ill will
Yeah.
between them. I mean, I think that we're all, at the end of the day, fighting the same battle. I can speak as to being a sales rep. I love the places I go in and see 5 other sales reps.
Right.
I mean, we all end up just like talking. It makes the situation more fun. Sometimes you end up spending a little bit too much time there just because you're basically commiserating.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I've never had any ill will or anything, a problem with anyone. Good friends with home brewer. I just wish, help each other out. We've done collaborations in the past. Certainly love to do more, but it's kind of finding time for that.
Right.
Between both. I mean, there's like I said, a ton of breweries I don't even know who know them personally, or a ton of people in this industry I still don't know because we're so busy focusing on ourselves and working every day. But I've definitely a lot of great run-ins with other breweries and reps and owners, and
I think that it would be actually utterly kind of contradictory if that wasn't the case, because I think everyone who got into the craft beer industry in the first place was for the communal aspect of it. So if that didn't exist, wouldn't be as appealing for people to be a part of in the first place.
Right.
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah. When I moved down to San Diego, I was really happy with the way that everyone was treated. But upon figuring out what the saturation level was, I thought I was being creative moving down here for craft beer, and I realized everyone else had roughly the same idea.
Yeah. Well, I think I talked to Ryan at Gravity Heights about this, but in terms of beer towns, San Diego's got to be in the top 3, right? Somewhere in there.
yeah.
Yeah, I think I remember. I mean, like I said, we're not super. I'm not super up to date on the data for
Right.
example, but I know places just along the West Coast, or just the western side, have a pretty big reputation for having some of the, I guess, more saturated, well-known brewery per capita states and cities. I know that San Diego is definitely one of them, and I think that the bubble is pretty much maxed out down here. But I've always wanted to personally take a trip up to Portland, to Seattle, because I know that's booming up there as well.
Yeah, the Portland beer scene's really interesting. I've kind of done the tour a few times up there, and it's, but there seems like we caught up, at least in volume, from what I remembered.
In terms of literal
radius.
beer production, we have to be really far up there. Per capita,
Yeah.
I mean, that might be a different story, but if I had to take an educated guess, I would have to. I mean, I've heard a lot of people refer to San Diego as the craft brew capital of the United States.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't necessarily know if that's true.
No, I can't remember if it was New York Times. Somebody had, one of the big kind of travel newspaper sections wrote a thing about people were actually, this was a tourist destination now for people wanting to do craft beer tastings.
People in all the time.
Really, yeah.
Even when I'm here, it's great to just tell people the whole just in the
Oh,
mile
yeah.
radius of North
Right.
Park. Yeah, bam,
Oh,
they're
it's
just
living in San Diego has it makes everybody who's your friend want to visit San Diego because you're there, and so you just go through the motions and take control of the spots that you want to take your friends to. But also a good telltale sign about the craft beer scene down here is you drive along multiple highways, and people will use craft beer in their marketing along billboards because they realize it's such a big part that it'll capture a big enough audience that it's effective advertising.
Right.
I know that if you drive along the 8, and then you drive along places that more in East County, there's a lot of the casinos talk about that.
Yeah, no, I noticed that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, very good, guys. Is there anything else you'd like to tell the listeners about the brewery or your products?
I mean, I think that we've pretty much conveyed most things. Just if you do already know who we are, I would say make sure that you're aware of all of our can releases, because we have been pumping them out, and we will create specialty one-offs all the time.
Yeah. Normally our can releases, despite any hiccups, which seems to be happening every couple months.
Yeah.
Usually the third Saturday of every month is the release of two
Okay.
different styles. And normally with our IPAs, we'll sprinkle in a stout, a Berliner, obviously. And then our anniversary should be the second weekend of February. It's going to be a Friday. Shoot, it might even be a 4-day event. 3-day event? 3 for now.
Yeah, I know that we
Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Nice.
we roughly talked about doing
Doing
Thursday,
a-
Friday,
a
Saturday,
Thursday,
Sunday, but
so that's the second week of February. So we have new beers lined up. Just
I'll be right here. Yep.
right here.
All right.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday, new beers, and whatever else we got cooking. I'm not even sure.
yeah, I mean, it was mostly just the anniversary that we talked about, but I mean, it's very possible that Kat just whips up an event we'll advertise it like 2 weeks out. So just be on the lookout like for anything that's going on in the tasting room.
All right. And we'll, in the show notes, we'll put your website, contact information, social media, and that sort of thing. So
It's awesome.
very cool. Well, thanks for your time, guys.
No,
This was
thanks.
really
Thank
fun.
you.
Thanks for coming in.
All right. Cool.
But in each of the three beverages, the intoxicating part is always the same substance, ethyl alcohol.